You shot Let's All Hate Toronto. That was through Elevator Films?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I had my cinematic experience with Elevator Films on a production called Escape to Canada. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, no, I did some work on that too, actually.
Me and Chris Goodwin actually started a cafe in Hamilton.
Was that I was shooting there.
You were, eh?
Yeah. I was a camera guy there one day. There was like, you guys did a protest walk?
Chris and Clark's Up in Smoke Cafe is what we called it. And I mean, certainly when I saw Let's All Hate Toronto, I mean, going to school at Mohawk College, you know, I felt inclined to tell everybody about it, pointing out just this cultural divide that exists, right?
Yeah. Plus, I mean, the other thing I like about that film is it's not like if you were to do a film like Let's All Hate London,
mm-hmm.
or Let's All Hate New York, people actually hate it enough to blow it up.
Yeah.
Like in Canada, it's more like Toronto's your asshole big brother. It's done with good-naturedness in Canada. It's not real hate. It's kind of like it is like a national joke to say Toronto sucks, but it's said with a bit of love, you know?
Exactly, and there's a bit of contempt with those that don't get to enjoy the city. Can you tell me how it tied in with your Eyeborg project?
It didn't really, except for the fact that I was doing an Eyepatch when mixing with it. Everyone thought it was a joke. Like I just had it removed, and there's an interim period between when you get it removed and you get a prosthetic eye in. CBC, the lens, was interested, and Let's All Hate Toronto did very, very well for them, so they were quite pleased. Like when we aired on CBC, the lens, it was their highest ever rated documentary. I'm pretty positive right now that about the prospect of getting some new media funding. The Canadian Television Fund has become the Canadian Media Fund.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the Eyeborg project, it's a little bit all-consuming. Like, it's not easy making a wireless video camera, so I really had to, in the past year, I've basically done corporate videos to make money, and I've spent a lot of it on doing like a world-class engineering project. So I'm finally at the stage now where the eye works, holding on to the shot of the eye working, and have a lot of ideas about how to make it an interactive experience.
And how does the augmented reality, how's that going to tie in?
Well, there's kind of two stages for the way I'm going to roll out the eyes. I'm going to create an Eyeborg app. You can go on a smartphone, like iPhone, for example. So when you look at the screen on your iPhone, you'll see what I'm seeing, including blinking and glancing around and what have you. So one idea, for example, to make it interactive is I'm going to probably partner with a company called Ustream, and that's a company that Ashton Kutcher, for example, uses a lot. Like if he's backstage at Saturday Night Live, he turns on his iPhone video camera and broadcasts live to Ustream.tv. But there's also a Twitter stream so that people can communicate with him while he's filming.
And give him instructions to do hilarious things.
Right. And so he's Ashton Kutcher, so he doesn't have to do much. I mean, the fact that he's backstage at Saturday Night Live and he's Ashton Kutcher, he doesn't really have to be that creative at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, for example, one thing I might do is I still wear an eye patch because I'm a one-eyed dude, and I just don't care about trying to look normal. And so if I switch the eye patch to my good eye, all of a sudden I'm effectively blind.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to see for me? It's going to be the audience. And this is a classic case of interactive dramatic irony. If you know dramatic irony, it's like, for example, if you're watching a horror film and you're like, oh no, don't go in the basement, there's like an evil guy down there. It's when the audience knows something that you don't. And it's one of the most original, compelling reasons to get somebody interested in something dramatic.
And almost like a choose-your-own-adventure kind of effect.
Right. So it was kind of depressing. I went to the last film I thought I might see was Pink Panther with Steve Martin, which sucked. I thought, oh my God, this is the last movie I see. So with the Eyeborg app, I've switched the eye patch. You're seeing what I see. You have the ability to Twitter communicate with me, and I'll also set up an audio channel. And you're basically looking through the eye of somebody who's blind.
Wow.
and giving them instructions and interacting with them, and I'll give users an opportunity to level up. I'm also thinking of doing something called socially awkward mission. It's a voyeuristic experience. Somebody who is a user that I'm going to reward, I'll give them, for example, one of my weird augmented reality T-shirts,
Yep.
which is teasing people about the future of how I'm going to bring augmented reality in.
Yeah.
But then they'll be able to sort of give me instructions, not unlike the David Letterman thing where he used to send a guy out that had a video camera.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But there's going to be a very interesting film language, and this is one of the interesting things about the eye, is even though it's a mechanical camera in my eye socket,
Yeah.
the film language I get is much more the way that we actually see. So if you think about other forms, like acting, for example, acting used to be what I would call on a tripod. Very perfect, eye of angel, kind of stiff version of reality.
Yeah, it's static, right?
Because static, yeah. I mean, and if you think about acting too, you could say it was on a tripod. It's like, Philip, what is going on?
Yeah.
And that's nothing like the way that we act, but it was an accepted language of interpretation of reality.
Sure,
So
sure.
then Marlon Brando came along, and he started sort of mumbling and talking and acting the way we actually act. Not perfectly, but much more naturalistic. And so the cool thing about the eye is it actually moves, like it glances, and there's blinking, and you see my eyelashes. So the irony is that it's a mechanical eye in my head, but the film language I get is much more similar to the way that we look at the world when we're experiencing the world. Like, we don't come floating perfectly down from trees and then sit on a tripod when we're looking at the world. We're walking around, we're glancing, we're our eyes move. Sometimes we blink much more quickly when we're feeling different emotions. But the other great thing for me is I'll be able to achieve something really magical, I think, which is direct pupil-to-pupil eye contact, which is something that other documentary makers have been leaning towards. Instead of the classic shot of a guy talking to somebody off camera with 3 lights and a camera crew in front of him, I'll have somebody that I don't necessarily have to tell them I'm wearing a camera eye because I can paint it like my own. And the way that I'll be capturing the image is the way that we look at people. So the documentary subject is acting much more the way they naturally act, because you stick a bunch of cameras and lights around a person, they're not acting like themselves, they're acting like a version of themselves.
Absolutely.
So on both ends of the documentary formula, the subject and the interviewer, and the way the subject looks directly into my pupil, it's much more like an actual conversation that you have with somebody and re-experiencing that reality.
It's much more sincere.
Yeah, unless, you also have to put in, personality. Like, it's some documentary makers are very good at getting a sincere reaction. It's kind of dependent on me and my interviewing skills, because I can be very insincere. But, so can people when they're interacting with people in reality.
Absolutely. And is this a 1080p picture? Like?
Oh, no way.
No,
we hardly, no. It's lo-fi. It's like, same quality as, like, let's say, last year's low-end Nokia video camera. The aesthetic you get, oddly, is very similar. If you watch the first Terminator, there's a certain aesthetic and quality to the video that Terminator gets. That they show you in the film. You understand, oh, this is Terminator's point of view right now.
Yeah, the POV cam.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like that. There's actually a filter in Final Cut Pro people use now to take footage that's too high in quality, and you add this filter to it so that in film language terms you understand, oh, this is like a slightly lower quality video that fizzles once in a while, like, and people immediately understand, oh, this is some sort of 80s version of a post-apocalyptic point of view.